In this particular exercise, we do a simulation of an epidemic. Certainly, since COVID, all of you know what an epidemic and certainly a pandemic are. When there is an epidemic, obviously you need to be monitoring it. Ideally, how do you prevent it from starting in the first place? How do you prevent this rapid, huge increase in number of cases of a particular infection? To try to prevent it, you should be monitoring the number of cases of infection. You should be trying to prevent future transmission of whatever the causative agent is. Some of this is going to involve educating the public as to how to prevent that transmission, how to recognize the symptoms of the infection, when you should be going to the doctor for treatment. There's multiple ways that different diseases can be spread. It obviously depends on what the causative agent is of it. Some are caused by viruses, some by bacteria, and even like not all bacteria spread the same way. It depends on which particular one you're talking about. Some things are spread by airborne droplets. Some they're spread in the water. Some are in the food. Some you have to have direct contact with the person. Sometimes it may be indirect contact. Sometimes there is a vector or a fomite involvement, meaning that there's maybe a tick that bites an infected animal and then it becomes infected and then it bites a person and infects the person. Sometimes the fomite is where it's an inanimate object. One big common thing is money. That somebody who is sick is touching the money, they hand it to someone else, or maybe you pay for an item, and then another person comes along, receives that money, and they're touching it. And depending on how long the microorganism can survive on an object like a dollar bill or a coin, things may pass that way. So it's very important for epidemiologists who specialize in disease transmission. Number one, how to find out how it is being transmitted so you can break that transmission from one individual to another. Also, along with whenever you have an epidemic, is to find out who all has become infected so you can start treatment so they don't continue then to pass it on to other individuals. And if you, depending on what the disease is, you want to find everyone also who's possibly come in contact with an infected person so you can treat them and prevent infection. So the prevention of epidemics, prevent that transmission from person to person. Because a lot of things are transmitted by contaminated water and contaminated food sources, make sure that those sources are clean. It is something that we find after any natural disaster. It is so important to make sure that you have clean water supply so you're not having an outbreak of diseases on top of whatever the initial natural disaster was. So clean water, clean food, wash your hands. And hopefully everyone is doing this anyway. Unfortunately, not everyone does, but make sure that you're washing your hands, especially when there's an outbreak, say a flu or COVID or whatever it is. Wash your hands. If you are feeling sick, and you may not have severe symptoms, but if you're not feeling well, isolate yourself. You're probably contagious. You don't want to get other people sick. It's something I've never understood. I used to have a neighbor that when her son was sick, she would keep him home from school. But because he was too sick to go to school, she would take him to the zoo or take him with her to the store, or, you know, in the afternoon when the other kids got home from school, sure, he can be outside and play with them, which the rest of us mothers were usually going, thanks, we don't want our kids sick too. To help prevent from contaminating someone else, getting others sick, just stay home. You probably want to be in bed anyway. Get rest, have your chicken soup. So just stay home. One activity that we do in a face-to-face setting is we do have a lotion You can buy it easily. It's a glow in the dark. It glows under UV light. And so we usually have one person put it on. Sometimes it's the instructor. Sometimes we have a student do it. And then go around and touch things or shake hands with people to show how easily it is to pass just by touching things with your hands, to spread potentially bacteria. I mean, usually we're talking about bacteria, but bacteria, viruses, whatever the microorganism is, pass it from one individual to another. And students are usually surprised at how effective or how quickly things can pass from person to person just by brushing or touching things. And so on this slide, several pictures showing this is the lotion where I've touched the light switch in the room. Over here, this is also in our lab, actually the way to lock the door. And so I've also touched on this. This is the side of a countertop in the lab where you can see I was just leaning against with my hand against the tabletop there. And then over here you can definitely see the handprints. This is on the door of the goggle case that we have. So the protective eyewear. And we were just touching against the door, but you can see the glowing from the lotion. So this is simulated. What you have on your hands. It's so important to wash your hands and wash them effectively, as you've seen the previous experiments. Wash them at least for 20 seconds, preferably using soap and water. But if nothing else, just some water. And then just, if you are sick, just isolate at home so that you don't pass it on to other individuals.